What is up, everybody? We are back with another rankings video. And today we're looking at the running backs. We've already ranked 24 quarterbacks. There's 3 videos out going over our top 24 quarterbacks for the 2023 fantasy football season, redraft football, not dynasty. So it's only for the 2023 season. And I'm joined, per usual, by my father. Jeff, how's it going?
How's everybody doing? I sound a little nasally. I'm a little congested, under the weather, whatever you want to call it. So, but I'm ready to roll.
Ready to roll, and there's the cough button for you there. You're going to Vegas, so you're going to put $1,000 on the Chargers to win the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah, I'm going to Vegas. I don't know about the $1,000 thing, but trying to get well for Vegas. But cash in your $400 Justin Jefferson ticket from last year.
Yep. I put $20 on him at 20-1 to win Offensive Player of the Year. So, plus 2,800, you can get $28,000. You've put $1,000 on Chargers to win the Super Bowl. So you can retire again with that. No, don't bet on the Chargers. Don't bet on any San Diego sports, ex-San Diego sports. They're cursed. So we're going to get into it. We're starting from 30 and counting down. We're going to try and do 10 a video. And we made a combined list separately. And so the first guy on the list actually wasn't on my list. Dad, you had him ranked 25th on yours. Oh, by the way, this is for half PPR. Just keep that in mind. Half PPR, not full PPR. We like to do half right in the middle.
And we're starting at number 30.
Starting at 30, and we're assuming. So how we approached it, kind of, I think with the Kamara thing, I think we both approached it as like he's going to be suspended at least 4 games or something. For injured guys like Breece Hall and Javonte Williams, we're assuming they're going to start the season, but we can still take into account they're coming back from a major injury. So we'll kind of talk about that when we get to them. But the first guy on our list, again, wasn't on my top 20 or my top 30. Dad, he was 25th for you. James Cook from the Buffalo Bills. Defend your position on why James Cook should be a top 30 or will be a top 30 fantasy running back in 2023.
I know it's kind of pushing it a little bit. The guy wasn't even a quote-unquote bell cow number one running back at Georgia. So I think he's probably going to fit in right where Devin Singletary was. So I think that's about 800 yards rushing and catch, quite a few passes, I think. So that's why I think he should be here.
Yeah. I guess my hesitation on him is they brought in Dameon Harris to Buffalo. They even brought in Latavius Murray to Buffalo. I don't know. It's almost, it felt like the James Cook experience kind of failed. And they even traded for like Nyheim Hines last year. And Nyheim Hines is still on the team. And he might even just be a better pass catcher than James Cook, So I don't know, only like basically 110 touches for James Cook last year. He only caught 21 passes. I think we were expecting a lot more from him in catching passes. I don't know if Buffalo's
double that.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of where we were. I think we figured he was going to get, 120 carries and 40, 50 catches. Hopefully, he got 90 carries and 21 catches. So it wasn't anywhere close to being fantasy relevant. So I'm just very hesitant on. We haven't seen a running back really do much under the Josh Allen, the current Bills, right? We haven't seen it because Josh Allen runs a lot, because he takes touchdowns, and
we're expecting that. I'm expecting that big year 1 to year 2 jump. So, but a lot of that has to do with the offense and stuff like that. So we'll see on this guy, on James Cook.
Yeah. And, he's a big concern with him was he's 190 pounds. And it's a big concern with a few running backs that were drafted this year as well. Like, we just don't see it happen. Like, we don't see it work. I mean, what running back under 190 pounds has ever done anything in the NFL? Like, maybe Darren Sproles, was he like 190 pounds? Like, he's kind of a unicorn, right? He's kind of a guy that doesn't happen very often. Darren Sproles is 190 pounds, but it's like, what other guy under 200 pounds is even fantasy relevant? Like, I can't really think of much at the running back position. So, I don't know. There's a couple guys I'd rather have on this list. Like the next guy, who I ranked 20th, he falls in at 29th because, Dad, you didn't have him ranked. And that's Cam Akers. And I'm curious as to why you took him off your list and you don't want to rank him as a top 30 guy.
Yeah, I'm not. And maybe it's not related so much to Cam Akers. I think it's going to be related to the LA Rams. So, Cam Akers' situation last year, that was really funny. It looked like he was going to get released and, I'm done with the Rams. All of a sudden he's back playing. And then in the last month of the season, he looked relevant. And now, supposedly he's going into camp. The Rams, they have like 40 rookies and 40 first-year players on their main roster, I think. And so they have a whole bunch of new people. So the Rams are going to be lucky to win 6 games in my book. So I just don't see Cam Akers being that relevant.
Do you think he's the lead back for the Rams?
Right now, yeah, but I believe there's another guy.
Zach Evans? That's who they drafted, but he was a 6th rounder.
Yeah, was there a draft pick this year?
Yeah, Zach Evans.
Yeah, okay.
The 6th rounder.
I thought there was one other one.
No, they don't really have much. They didn't really do much at the running back position, which makes sense because they are kind of in rebuild mode, or kind of, they don't have the money to spend on running backs. They have a lot of holes to fill. So it's like it's Cam Akers. There's Kyron Williams from last year, maybe is who you were thinking of. Kyron Williams, Ronnie Rivers last year. Kyron Williams, I believe, was a 4th round pick last year. 5th round pick last year. So, I mean, you have him, Zach Evans. It seems, Cam Akers, 2nd round pick, seems to be the job. I mean, he was on fire those last 4 games of the year. He won a lot of people fantasy championships. He was RB2 over the last 4 weeks of the season, averaged 18.3 half PPR points a game, which was tied for – it was McCaffrey number 1, Cam Akers and Eckler tied. So he was on fire. A lot of that was one big game, 33 points, almost a full 34-point game. I just think it's kind of his job to lose, and if he's the guy, he has the opportunity. They're going to rely on him, and I mean, who knows? The Rams are an interesting team because I can see them winning 6 games. I can also see them being like a team that makes the playoffs at 9-8 or 10-7 because they have Aaron Donald and Cooper Kupp and Matt Stafford. They tried to rebuild the offensive line a little bit. Like, they still have really good players there. They're not very deep. But if all those guys can stay healthy, they have to be worth some wins, right? So I kind of look at it as like we're looking at a starting running back and potentially a guy that kind of gets all the carries, He had 23-19, he had 20 carries basically every game the last 3 weeks. Didn't catch much, a couple passes every game, so that's not bad. So if they do that again and they just really rely on running the ball and try to be efficient that way, like he could have a big year, in my opinion. So, last guy, I believe that was a disagreement, not on both our list, was James Conner, and I'm a little surprised here too, Dad, that you didn't have James Conner at least in the top 30. I ranked him 16th.
Oh boy.
No,
Well,
I know the team's gonna suck, but
there it is. The team,
Well,
same thing.
yeah, real quick before I let you take over, just because the team sucks, so it doesn't mean you always, something you've always said since I was a kid is someone has to score points, someone has to catch passes, someone has to run the ball, right? We've seen Dameon Pierce produce fantasy relevancy under the Texans. Christian McCaffrey all those years with the Panthers. Nick Chubb even on the Browns, and they weren't that great of a team last year. So there's always, especially at running back, it's a little more common. I remember I did the numbers, and maybe it'll be an episode that we'll talk about in the future of just like what percentage of running backs, finishing in the top 24 come from bottom third offenses, and it's not a super high percentage. You definitely, you want to pick someone in a better offense, but it does happen. And running back, it's more likely to happen than it is at wide receiver. So I have James Conner at 16th. Real quick, he was last year. He missed time, but he was RB20 last year. He averaged 13.6 half PPR points a game. And I believe from like week 10 on, he was RB6 last year. He averaged almost 18 points a game for 8 weeks. So they just fed him the ball. The team sucked during those 8 weeks too. Kyler was out. The team was really bad. And it was basically James Conner and no one else. So I kind of figure that's what they're going to do this year. And they didn't really draft anyone to take, playing time from him. So I think it's going to be the Cardinals are going to suck, and they're just going to feed James Conner, and they're going to kind of semi-tank if Kyler Murray's not there. So, but take it away, Dad. James Conner not on your list of top 30.
Yeah. So, he's never in his career he's never rushed for over 1,000 yards. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's with Pittsburgh and Arizona. He had one great year because he scored 15 touchdowns with the Arizona Cardinals in 2021. So everybody is still, in the fantasy world, everybody's still riding off of those coattails and thinking there's going to be some kind of repeat. I think if you look at his stats from last year, there was one game he rushed for over 100 yards. So,
but if combine his passes, though, I mean, he catches passes. He catches 3.5 a game last year.
that is. Now I'll just compare. Since I'm thinking mentally the same about Cam Akers and James Conner, and I had Akers on my list, and I left Conner off. Yeah. Maybe I would feel just looking at taking a deeper dive and looking at the receiving and the receptions. James Conner by far was more into as a receiver, than Cam Akers was. So
yeah, I mean, if he didn't miss those 4 games, he would have caught 60 passes.
That's quite a bit for a running back.
He would have rushed for over 1,000. He was on pace for it. I mean, Austin Eckler, Alvin Kamara have never rushed for 1,000 yards. You can get it other ways. So, like, I argue, like his 2021 season was really good. His 2018 season when Le'Veon Bell was, like, sitting out was really good. He had 973 yards rushing, 12 touchdowns, 55 catches, 500 yards. That's kind of what he's capable of. If you kind of look at his career since then, like, he's kind of been on pace for that. He always misses time. So he's probably going to miss some time, which is I would talk him down a little bit for that. But honestly, I think he's another guy. Like if he's my RB2 and I go heavy like wide receiver, I'm very happy with James Conner as my RB2. Like, and I'm, if I can wait, and go a little receiver heavy, get James Conner as my RB2, I'm super happy there because I think he's going to put up, if he's healthy the whole year, let's just say he plays 14 games, he misses 3 games. I think he puts up 1,200 total yards, and then he gives you 40 catches, 40 to 50 catches, and then we'll see about the touchdowns, right? So, I don't know. I think he definitely deserves to be in the top 30.
You had him at 15?
16th. Yes.
Wow.
16th. Again, I mean, just look at the last 2 years, right? Like, that's kind of where RB20 last year, even though he missed 4 games, he was still RB20, and he was RB5 in 2021. So, yeah, he's not going to get 15 touchdowns because Arizona's offense is not going to be that good. But any guy that's going to give me 50 catches, which I think he's very capable of doing, like I want on my team. So, but moving on to now, it's the rest of these guys on our list we agreed on. We have at 27 DeAndre Swift, Dad, from your old team, the Lions. Give me best case scenario for DeAndre Swift in your opinion.
Wow, best case?
Yeah, on the Eagles now.
1,100 yards rushing, and wow, they don't throw to the running back very much.
I think they were the lowest percentage-wise, like 12% of their targets.
I don't know if that's going to change, so I'll just say, pull a rabbit out of the hat and say 50 receptions. So that would be maybe 40 receptions. So
I'd be with Penny getting hurt, right? Rachaad Penny being
he'd
have to get hurt for him to do that.
Well, Sanders, I'm just having him replacing Sanders.
Yeah,
Miles Sanders from last year,
who is almost 1,300 yards, 20 catches.
Yeah, and I said 1,100 yards and 40 catches. So I mean that's what I'm thinking in there. Because when he gets the ball in the open field, Swift he looks the part. He looks really good. His problem is he always gets hurt, but and I'm sure a lot of fantasy people. So this is his 4th year, and he's always been ranked pretty high. Always an RB2. And I know people get pissed off when they draft him, and he's only playing. He played a lot of games last year, but he didn't have a lot of action. There wasn't a lot of touches in those games. So,
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair for best case scenario. But again, that would have to be Rachaad Penny being hurt, which again he's been hurt every year. But yeah, I mean, he goes to kind of the best case scenario, best place for him. That you would want to see him at is on the Eagles. So yeah, I am a little worried that they don't. Only 12% of their passes last year were to running backs. I think most teams are like upwards of 20+%. So they're very far behind throwing to the pass catchers. And maybe that means, I don't know if there was more about the players they had and they just didn't want to throw them the ball, or, that's just how they roll. I don't know. I don't know. But he is a pretty talented player. So I think he has some intriguing upside. Like, he's a guy I definitely want to maybe take who's basically going to start the year on the bench for me. Like, I'm not relying on him as a starter. Maybe like a flex in like a 2-flex league. It's like, okay, DeAndre Swift is one of my flexes. I'm feeling very comfortable with him there. Yeah. So next guy on our list, Rachaad White, coming in at 26th. I had him 25th. I think, Dad, you had him something similar. 28th, so a little lower. comes in at 26th overall. Are you expecting him to be the bell cow this year, Ed? Oh, you're muted. Can't hear you. Can't hear you. I don't think you can. Can't hear you.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I do expect Rachaad White to be the bell cow, and it sure looked that way, near the end of the year last year. The path is cleared. Fournette's out of there. I think they still have some running backs, though.
Sean Tucker went there, a guy that we liked out of Syracuse. Sean Tucker. Keyshawn Vaughn still there. Chase Edmonds, I think, went there.
Yeah, Chase Edmonds. So I think he's probably more of a third down back, maybe. But Rachaad White had, I think his, near the end of the year, he was starting to get from about mid-November until they lost in the playoffs. It looked like he was getting most of the running back action. So
it was kind of split. He was starting. He took over as the starter, but he was just starting the game. It was pretty split in terms of the carries, the receptions.
There's one game late November last year versus Cleveland. He caught 9 passes. So so he's a part of the passing game. So I expect a kind of a little bit of a breakout for this guy, fantasy wise.
Yeah, I guess the only reason I'm hesitant in putting him, higher up on the list is we don't know. I don't want to assume too much, I guess, is my motto going into this fantasy year of just Gabe Davis again is a good example of he's the wide receiver too, because we all assumed that and we saw how that turned out. We've never seen Rachaad White be the main guy. He was never the main guy really in college. I mean, he was the main guy in college, but he's never had more than 185 carries in a season. That's something to keep in mind. These guys can break down, and maybe there's just it's kind of a concern that I have with Pollard a little bit, who we'll talk about in a later video, of just we're just kind of assuming now Pollard's going to get, or now Rachaad White's going to get 230 carries. It's I don't know. Can he hold up that way? Do they see him more as a pass catcher? And then another thing that I'm worried about is, and it's kind of what I'm worried about with all Buccaneers players, is there was inflation due to Tom Brady back-to-back years basically setting the record for the most pass attempts ever, 700 pass attempts. And so Rachaad White caught 50 passes is what you see. Wow, that's a lot. It's but Brady threw the ball 733 times, the most in the history of the NFL. So that's not going to happen this year because they have Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask. So I think you drop those pass attempts by 200, I think is a safe number. And that's going to affect all the guys' passing numbers. So we'll see. I mean, he's a guy I want to take a shot on for sure, but I'm not gonna overspend on him. And I think people are. I think people are going to overspend and draft him high, and I'm just not going to do that. I don't know where exactly in the draft so I would take him, but
I kind of feel somewhere.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel the same with the next guy actually, Khalil Herbert, who comes in at 25th on our list. Basically, everything I said about Rachaad White, I kind of translate to Khalil Herbert. It's we're assuming he's the guy. We've seen him look good in a couple of games when Montgomery was out and Khalil Herbert was the starter. But again, Khalil Herbert has never been the guy. He's had 130 carries in the NFL. I think he was a 5th or 6th round pick. He never had more than 155 carries in college. You got to be careful of just assuming this guy's going to touch the ball 250 times, which is where I think people are going to draft him. They're going to draft him like that kind of running back. So, do you have concerns with Khalil Herbert, Dad?
Well, they got a little bit of a crowded backfield. Deontay Foreman, and then they drafted the guy out of Texas, Roschon Johnson. So, yeah, based upon, we haven't seen the guy, being the main stud. He probably could have similar numbers that he had this year. So I'm not sure he deserves the ranking here. Maybe a little higher, out of the 30, but we'll roll with it and see what we get.
Yeah. And again, I think, if we have to put money on anyone being the lead guy, I think I would put it on Khalil Herbert, but I'm not feeling very confident about it, because what if Khalil Herbert's just kind of the 1B or the change of pace or the pass catcher guy? They brought in Deontay Foreman, who's looked good as a pure runner in between the tackles the last 2 years. Roschon Johnson, like you said, is probably my favorite running back on that team. And I think he's really talented, and I think he could be the best running back. So, again, I like Khalil Herbert, but I'm probably not going to end up with him much in fantasy leagues, because people are going to be drafting him as like a top 15 player, a top 16 guy, and I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to reach that far for him. I want him as like my RB3. That's where I want him. But that's not going to happen. He is technically tied with the next guy on our list, David Montgomery, his old running mate. Montgomery finds himself on the Lions. Dad, are we assuming Montgomery is going to put up like a Jamal Williams like season in Detroit?
I can see 1,100 yards out of David Montgomery, and I don't know about 17 touchdowns. I mean, that was
yeah, I can't predict that.
Yeah, yardage wise, I do see David Montgomery being that way, and I know Gibbs is, Jahmyr Gibbs is running back too, and we're going to talk about him here, but I can see David Montgomery has I think he has one of the highest missed tackle rates.
Mm-hmm.
Either that means your line stinks so bad in front of you, like with the Bears, or you're always dodging tackles, or you're very good at making people miss. So we'll see. He's got a good line in Detroit. We'll see how it ends up.
Yeah. Yep. I think I like David Montgomery this year, and I think people are going to sour on him a little bit because Jahmyr Gibbs is there, and I'm going to scoop him up and take him as like an RB3 type of player. I'm going to be happy with it because they're going to give him opportunities. I mean, they just paid him a good amount of money. I think they paid him where he, he's like top 10 highest paid, or he's in like the top 12 highest paid running backs. Like, yeah, they paid him 18 million. For what was it, 2 or 3 years, Dad? 3 years?
I think it's 2 years. I thought
2 years. So I mean, 18 million for 2 years is good. That's a good chunk of change they're giving. They're going to give him the ball. We saw it last year with Jamal Williams, and I think David Montgomery's better than Jamal Williams, more talented, I should say. So he's a guy that's going to fall in drafts, and I'm going to scoop him up and be very happy because he's on a really good offense with a good offensive line. And yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs is there, but I think there's enough to go around for both. And we don't know about Jahmyr Gibbs yet, right? So
yeah. So Montgomery's played 4 years in the NFL. This will be his 5th, and every year he's had over 200 carries. So, and his lowest receiving total, he's anywhere from 25 catches to 54 catches. So he's got all the potential being a good running back.
Yeah, I mean, RB25 his rookie year, RB4 in 2020, RB21 in 2021. and RB23 last year. So he's just like a solid RB2, you know? That's just kind of what he is. You know what you're getting out of him. And I just think people aren't very excited when they hear David Montgomery's name. And for that reason, like, he should go as like in the RB2 range. I think he should go in the top 24, which is where we have him. But I think he's going to drop. So be on the lookout for him. Alvin Kamara coming in at 23. Again, I guess we're kind of assuming he's going to have some kind of suspension, but let's just say he's not suspended, Dad. Would you have him maybe in like the top 16 or something if he's not suspended at all?
I don't know. You know, I know he catches the ball. He's got some good pass reception numbers, you know. And he's a pretty good running back as far as, you know, his whole career. What has he played? He's like 6 years. You know, his lowest running total is 728 yards all the way to 932. So, yeah, I can see Kamara being in that. Being in that category there. What, 16 you said?
Yeah, if he's not suspended, you know, like a solid RB2. Yeah, I mean, you're not going to get his first 4 years. He had 80 catches every year. You're not going to get that anymore, I would say. I mean, but like he still had 47 in 2021. He missed 4 games. He missed 2 games last year. He had 57 catches. So, I mean, he would have been plus 60 plus catches. So, like, he was still catching the ball. And, like, his only issue, he was RB8 last year in half PPR, which I think a lot of people, it surprises a lot of people when they hear that. But that's because he catches. Yeah, it's because he catches 57 passes, and there's not many running backs that do that.
Yeah.
And he only had 4 touchdowns. Only 4 touchdowns last year, and he was RB8. So I just think if he's there, I think he's going to fall very far. You know, obviously we'll be doing the drafts. We'll probably know if he's going to be suspended or not. But even if he's not suspended, I still think he's going to fall far because I think people just, again, they kind of sour on him. Jamal Williams is there, but I think Kamara, when he was at his best, was when like a guy like Mark Ingram was there taking those in-between tackles, and, you know, Kamara's out there catching all the passes. Like, I kind of want him with 190 carries, 180 carries, and 70 catches, not 240 carries or something, which is what he's been getting the last couple years. So, again, another guy, like, if he falls and you scoop him up as your RB3, there's just a lot of potential there. So, 3 more guys to finish off our list. Another Lion, Jahmyr Gibbs, finishes higher than David Montgomery. Dad, I think you were the high guy on him. You had him 18th. I had him 28th. Why? What's the case for Jahmyr Gibbs being, in your opinion, a solid, mid-range RB2 in fantasy?
Yeah, I think I'm maybe pushing it a little bit on what am I thinking that Gibbs is going to do, you know, and you know, he's still a rookie and everything else, and you know, he probably, his ranking should be somewhere, you know, one of the things I'm really counting on is the Lions offensive coordinator, his name is Ben Johnson, is going to know how to use this guy. So, they did a pretty good job last year. You know, Swift and Jamal Williams, they used them both. Of course, Jamal Williams had most of the carries and the fantasy numbers. So I'm probably thinking more Gibbs is going to have more Swift type numbers. So we'll see. And that probably doesn't justify the ranking that I put him at, but
well, I think it would surprise you, kind of surprised me a little bit, is Swift last year came in at RB22. He averaged 12 half PPR points a game, and his average was RB 19. So more than I thought, I guess. I think the biggest thing, I think why everyone is down on DeAndre Swift is because everyone took him like as their RB1, right? Everyone took him early in the mid-second round. He
Yeah.
obviously didn't produce like that, but he still finished as a top 22 running back and a top 19. Still, if I'm getting 12 points a game from like of my flex or
So
my
that's what
RB2,
we're thinking. So that's what we're thinking that Jahmyr Gibbs is going to do. That's
guess
the
we
way I
have
would
to.
think.
Yeah, I guess we have to. Which is, I think I'm probably next time we do these rankings going to boost them up a bit because of that. Of just like, oh, like I think that's like baseline of what we're expecting from, because it's not like Swift was doing crazy touches. Like he had eight touches, 10 touches, 17, 9, 15, 13. Like he wasn't consistently getting a crazy amount of touches. So yeah, I think it's fair to say like that's kind of baseline for Swift, or for Gibbs, and then there's the potential that he's just a better player than Swift, right? So I think it's fair where you have him maybe a little high, but I think it's fair to have him closer to 20 than I did, at 28. So it'll be interesting to see for sure. I think I just wonder where he's going to go. I think the people that are following Dynasty and do Dynasty, they might overrate him a bit, and then the people that don't might underrate him a bit. So you might get him at a decent spot. But two more guys. Our next guy, Dameon Pierce, everyone's darling in the offseason last year. Dameon Pierce finished his RB27. So get this, DeAndre Swift was better than Dameon Pierce last year.
Wow.
I don't think many people would realize that. He was better in total points and in average points. He averaged more points and had more total points. I think if you ask every fantasy player that, they're going to say Dameon Pierce, including myself before, 30 seconds ago. Dameon Pierce, Dad, where did you have him? You had him 23rd. I had him 23rd. We both had him at 23rd overall. So he comes in at 21 overall. Dameon Pierce, Dad, are you expecting a bigger carry now? They brought in Devin Singletary. He had 220 rushes, 30 catches. Are you expecting about the same amount of touches, more?
Yeah,
less?
I would think he's going to be right in that that same territory there. 220 carries, that's not chump change. So, he
It's missing 4 games, by the way. So
yeah, he fumbled 4 times too. I know I haven't really looked at anybody's fumbling stats, but
yeah, it's very interesting. Like, I was not high on Dameon Pierce. I thought people were overrating him a bit.
it was from the preseason.
Yeah, and he definitely, I feel like he tailed off a bit towards the end of the year. Just looking at, he had 5 carries, 18 carries for 73 yards. Like, it just feels like he got worn down and then he eventually got hurt. It kind of makes sense for a guy that never had more than 105 carries in college, and then you're giving him 220 carries. You're doubling his carry total more than he's ever had. And then, honestly, you bring in Devin Singletary, and I think there's like there's a non-zero chance that Devin Singletary is just a better player than Dameon Pierce. And I know people are going to freak out about that, but there's a chance, man, in my opinion, that Singletary is just a better player. And I think Singletary is going to take a lot more touches than we are thinking. I don't think Devin, I I don't know. I just don't think Dameon Pierce is going to get the same amount of touches as he did last year. And for that reason, I expect the Texans offense to not be very good. I'm kind of sour on Dameon Pierce. Like, I'm not very high on him. I think he could be, again, I think he's going to be another guy that people overdraft a bit. And I think he could really be a bust on your team, Slightly worried about him, that's for sure. Anything else on Devin Singletary, Dad, before we get to our last guy in our top? Nope. Javonte Williams. Javonte Williams comes in at number 20. This one's tough because we just don't know where he's going to be at. We assume that he's going to start the year, but even if he starts the year, I think they're going to ease him in, and I don't think he's going to be very efficient. The numbers are there. There's basically, I think we still think of Adrian Peterson coming off an ACL, and he ran for 2,000 yards, and we still have that in our minds. But he's like a very, very rare exception to the rule. It just doesn't work out for these guys that coming off of major knee injuries. Didn't work out for Dobbins. Didn't work out for Akers until the last 4 games of last year. Didn't work out for James Robinson last year. The list goes on and on and on. So, Javonte, I really like him as a talent. And I like that he's with Sean Payton, and Sean Payton's record and history with running backs. He's top 5 in fantasy points for running backs every year that he's been a head coach. But I just think it's going to be hard to rely on him, and I'm staying away from him again. Unless I'm drafting him and he's starting off on my bench, I'm staying away from Javonte Williams. Dad, what are you expecting from Javonte?
Yeah, when I first heard about the injury and it was it was not only an ACL, but I think there was a PCL or an MCL. Those are other ligaments in the knee. So it was multiple ligaments. Those become a little difficult to come back from, in a little quicker manner. I've already seen the one-off season hype. Sean Payton hopeful that, Javonte Williams is available week 1. I'm going, I don't know, man. This guy's going to be on the PUP list. And, if he plays in the month of September, I'd be shocked.
Yeah. Which is unfortunate because I think he's a really good player. But I'm just, again, that's my biggest problem last year with Cam Akers and J.K. Dobbins. Akers going in the 5th round and Dobbins going in the 7th round. It's yeah, you probably lost your fantasy leagues because of that. Because you can't rely on these guys coming off of major injuries. The guy drafted in the 5th round needs to be a major contributor to your fantasy team. So you can't rely on that at all. So I have him at 20. I'd be happy if I got him as my RB3. But other than that, I'm staying away. So, Dan, of these guys in our top, 30 to 20, which one of them would you choose to have the best chance of having a breakout big year, finishing as a top 12, top 15 type of guy?
David Montgomery.
Yeah. I think that's a good bet there. I'm going to say James Conner, my guy, James Conner. I already had him ranked 16th, so it's a little easy for me, but I like the Montgomery pick too. So, but that's it for today's video. We've done our running back rankings for redraft. Again, it's May 25th, so a lot's going to change in the next 3 months before the season starts, but we'll be back looking at 19 through 11. As always, like the video. Subscribe to the channel. I think we're at 190 subscribers, so 10 away from 200. And we appreciate it. And we will catch you guys all next time.